Daniel Cohen. I'm co-founder and CEO of Invivo AI.
So from your unique vantage point, what are Montreal's top competitive advantages when it comes to attracting FDI and in general in the life sciences sector?
So I think there are multiple factors here. I'd say first and foremost is probably the very large density of post-secondary technical talent we have here in Montreal. I'd have to fact check this, but I think it's among the largest in North America. This alone makes Montreal a really great place to build emerging technology companies, and I believe is probably an indirect driver of FDI. We obviously have this emerging dominance in machine learning, anchored largely by the presence of Mila, Quebec's AI Institute, and folks like Yoshua Bengio, who are pioneers in this space. Montreal in particular also has a long history of life sciences excellence, both on the academic side. So we have groups like the Institute for Research in Cancer and Immunology at the University of Montreal, Montreal Neurological Institute at McGill, but also on the industry side, dating back to the pharmaceutical companies that used to run R&D teams out of Montreal. These folks are sources of talent for the next generations of companies in Montreal and the associated FDI that comes with that. I would argue that people come first and people drive everything else that's built out around that, including infrastructure, investment, lab space. I think if you start with the people, it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling feedback loop.
So how would you further characterize Montreal's AI ecosystem strengths, but also who are some of the key players in the ecosystem and what do they bring to the scene?
Yeah, so again, coming back to the people, I think in Montreal in particular, we have this critical mass of not only students, but also academic scientists working across all areas of deep learning, again, anchored by Mila and the pioneering work done in deep learning by Professor Yoshua Bengio. Yoshua himself is, of course, a talent magnet for attracting the best students and the best professors, who then attract more top talent, and this really does become a self-fulfilling feedback loop. We're seeing evidence of this across our space here in Montreal. I think as far as other players go, across the early stage startup ecosystem, we have accelerators anchored by groups like Founder Fuel, the Techstars AI Accelerator, which is bringing in a lot of international companies. We have Santec, who have done really great work in this space, as well as early stage investment capital available through groups like Real Ventures, Panache Ventures, Brightspark Capital. I think when you take all of this together, what we're seeing is that it's helping to spur the creation of a growing number of early stage technology companies that are building on advances in machine learning applied to the life sciences. So we have companies, great companies like Eli Health in the fertility and contraception space. We have Nplex Biosciences and proteomics, Pathway Medical for point of care solutions, Perceive AI and clinical trial optimizations. All early stage companies that have benefited from this ecosystem that are now building really exciting solutions at the intersection of machine learning and life sciences.
So in layman's terms, what is AI-enabled drug design and why is it important for the future economy?
AI-enabled drug design is the use of AI and machine learning technologies to design more effective drugs for patients faster and cheaper than otherwise possible. So historically, it's been really hard and really expensive to develop a new drug. It takes on average about 10 to 15 years, somewhere around $2 billion to bring a new drug to market. And obviously the COVID pandemic that we're currently living through highlights the importance of accelerating these timelines for patients in need. And AI is just one of the tools we have available to us to help in this acceleration. And what we're doing with AI-enabled drug design is building the technology that solves this problem so that one day it might become possible. And we truly believe that by 2030, every new drug will be designed with machine learning. So what we're doing at Invivo AI is building the infrastructure to support this shift, to empower our partners in pharmaceutical and biotech companies to bring better medicines to patients faster than otherwise possible. And that's kind of what AI-enabled drug design is all about.
Well, it sounds like you have ideas about how we can further attract, train, and retain top talent in this intersection that you describe. Of AI applied to the health sector. Please tell us more.
Yeah, so I think as far as training goes, we have great initiatives in Montreal, like District 3's AI and Genomics program. Yvedo and Mila run a deep learning summer school. We have AI for Good initiatives, programs that are aimed at training the next generation of multidisciplinary talent across these different fields. We're also seeing increasing collaboration between computer scientists, AI researchers, and their counterparts in the life sciences here in Montreal. So for example, we have folks at Mila working with teams in the Montreal Neurological Institute, working with teams at the Institute for Research in Cancer and Immunology on patient-centric applications of machine learning. I think this is hugely important.
Are you seeing greater interest from foreign players in the sector in Montreal? If so, why and from who?
So short answer is yes, definitely. If we take Invivo AI as an example, almost all of our current partners, I think with the exception of one, are international. And all of those partners recognize the emerging position Montreal has as a world leader in machine learning and AI. Again, largely anchored by Mila and the pioneering work of Yoshua Bengio and many of his really talented colleagues. So for example, with us, we have international pharmaceutical companies that have considered partnerships with AI startups in the UK, in Boston, in the Bay Area, and ended up working with us in Montreal due to not only the depth, but also the breadth of our machine learning team relative to other companies in our market. I believe quite strongly this is a function of us being headquartered at Mila, being able to draw from this amazing local talent pool, and also the affiliation that we have with some of the top AI researchers in the world.
I suspect you're biased in terms of your interest in seeing the health sector in Canada grow. Do you really see this as one of Canada's main economic development opportunities in the coming years, as many others do?
Yes, absolutely. I think it has to be. This should be a priority for Canada. I think when you look at the science that's being done, not just in Montreal, but across the entire country at research-driven universities, research-driven institutes, it's top tier. It's competitive with the best in the world. We just need to kind of take that next step, focused on commercialization, critical mass of capital, critical mass of talent, incentives to commercialize, infrastructure. All of these components tie into each other to allow us to build globally competitive companies out of Canada.
If I understood it correctly, you do have sort of one foot between Montreal and Boston, and you're in Mississauga right now. How would you describe the ease of doing business in Montreal compared to, for instance, those other places? And how receptive would you say is the business community to new players, in particular foreign?
I think in general, we have an incredibly welcoming community here in Montreal. We're the city that's making a focused effort to attract international talent, built around our growing position in machine learning locally. Personally, we feel incredibly fortunate to be doing business here in Montreal. We haven't noticed any major barriers to doing business. I think business these days is done globally. We intend very much to keep our machine learning group headquartered in Montreal because we truly believe that we have some of the best talent in the world available to us locally, and a lot of the pieces coming together to allow us to build a globally competitive company out of Montreal. Montreal is an amazing place to live. I think anyone who spends any amount of time here, particularly in the spring and summer, falls in love with the city. And that is certainly a big part of the recruiting pitch for us is enjoy the skiing and the cross-country skiing in the winter, but then live in a beautiful city in spring and summer. And we certainly love it here. It's been a great place to build a company.